looking forward to the opportunity going to Purdue this weekend. I think it's been we've only played one road game this year at Oregon, so it's a good time to do this. I think Purdue's an improved football team. They're doing a great job in a lot of different areas. The offense is much more productive than it was last year at this time. Played us extremely tough last year. I think the defense has improved as well. Special teams playing very well. And I'll take some questions.
Mark, Michael Geiger hasn't had a lot of potentially consequential missed field goals in his career yet. Looked pretty dejected leaving the field. Have you talked to him at all about the missed kick, or do you stay away from him? How do you deal with somebody in that position?
No, I just asked him how he's doing, and is he good? It was his birthday on Saturday. That's probably part of it. He's a very, very good kicker. He's a gamer. His confidence will not be shaken. He's going to go out and he's going to do the job. So I have all the confidence in the world in, hit the crossbar.
Mark, last week you talked a little bit about maybe people's expectations were a little high for the defense, maybe got spoiled last year. Was that performance against Nebraska, I don't know, how did it make you feel seeing that as a kind of like, this is what everyone was kind of expecting with this team?
Well, I think we strive for perfection and excellence. I think we understood what had to happen in that football game for us to be successful defensively. You had to shut down Abdullah and, had to pressure the quarterback and do the things that we did. As I talked Sunday night, those things got done. We made them go the hard way, and even though in the fourth quarter there were a couple of plays made, for the most part, we played very, very extremely well, I felt. So I sort of do feel like it's a little bit of an indication of a little bit of redemption maybe. Guys played well though. Specific players played well. Structurally, we played extremely well and had great attention to detail. Tackled well.
Mark, no Mylan Hicks on the depth chart this week. Is that a long-term injury?
Yeah, I will address Mylan. Mylan has a broken arm, so he's out probably for 5 weeks. It's unfortunate. He's a senior. He's playing well for us, and he'll continue to be a guy there that'll bring a lot of emotion to our football game. But he's going to be out for a little bit.
Following up on that, Mark, how do you adjust? I know he was a guy who was playing at linebacker, but also I think playing that kind of like the star and the nickel too. What do you do to adjust to his loss?
Well, Demetrius Coxell and R.J. Williamson can also play a star. We can leave Monte in there, but Demetrius Cox has been playing a star a lot. We also moved Jalen Powell to an outside linebacker position, who's been a very active safety. We just haven't gotten him on the field. He's about 210 pounds, so he's actually a little bit bigger than Mylan. And he gives you that defensive back mentality and movement. So he'll fill in there. And then Chris Fry will move up the depth chart a little bit as well in that area. So we've got guys, and we expect them to play well. But you're going to miss Mylan's enthusiasm, his leadership, and his experience in his play ability, playmaking ability.
Coach, philosophical question for you. I saw the stat. I think you're 37-0 now when you've got a 17-point lead, and yet Sunday night you were saying that you kind of told the offense to go a little heavier on the run. Do you reevaluate based on the personnel how you control these leads with a quarterback like Connor Cook?
Well, what was happening in the football game? First of all, it was 27 to 9. We had an opportunity to pick off the ball. The ball goes through our hands because it's 6 the other way. And it floats into a receiver's hands, and he runs it down the field, and they end up with a touchdown on that drive. So I think at that point in time, don't quote me on it, but probably about 7 minutes to go. And I felt like they needed to use their timeouts, or we needed to be able to run some clock and get a couple first downs, which we did. I also felt like there were some near interceptions. The windows were tight in terms of how the coverage was being played. And there was risk involved there. Risk with an 11-point lead at the time. I really didn't feel like we should take that risk. What happened after that, the quick punt return, really changed the game. And at that point, we had our hands team in. They had no timeouts left, I believe. No, they used their timeouts. But they had our hands team in because there was 2 minutes to go in the game. They called the timeouts. After we've got to run back to about the 8-yard line. So we were down there pretty deep in the territory, and then we had to go from there, as I remember all this. Then the punt return, and then the next thing you know, they're onside kicking again. So, to reevaluate it, as I said on Sunday, I think we need to look at our 4-minute game plan to close out a game. But sometimes I think you're up by X number of points. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we really were one series away from putting the 2s in at 27-3, and then all of a sudden the game just changed. So, when things change that fast, sometimes I think it's never really the same situation. You're just going to have to coach and make the best decisions possible. So I thought we tried to play the game to win. Didn't want to take any additional risk based on what was happening in our throwing game. I thought it was becoming inconsistent, and we needed to just grind it out and get out of the game.
Just to follow up on that, part of that 4-minute offense, something else that you talked about that you said you're going to get your hands in this week is the short yardage run game. Where does that start, and what are some of the things that you'll look at this week to address it? Because as you said, if Langford picks up 2 yards, it's probably game over, clock runs out.
Yeah. Well, I think what we just have to do as a staff, look at it as an offensive staff, and I would be involved in some of that, just in terms of who we're playing against, what they do in short yardage situations, and how can we make it better. And I think that's the main focus. And from a game management standpoint, I have to look at that and say, hey, we have realistically, we have 2 downs to make the first down. It's 3rd and 4, but we have 2 downs to make the first down if we're close, if the clock runs down to under a minute. Because if the clock runs down to and it's 4th down with 24 seconds to go or something like that, because the clock runs down, then we're going to go for it on 4th and 2. We're not going to kick the field goal. But as it was with whatever the time was left, felt like we had to kick it. Yeah.
Mark, with Dave obviously calling the plays and being the running backs coach, who handles running backs getting in and getting out? Obviously, I'm thinking Delton not playing. Who makes the personnel decisions there?
I think Dave usually makes those decisions, and he gets them going in there for whatever reason this time around. Langford was breaking some runs. As indicated by the last run, he broke a 17-yarder. So we stayed with that, with Hill and Langford in that rotation. But, I think Delbert has to play. A lot of times I'm going to say get so-and-so in there because I'll recognize that. I just didn't recognize it in the way the game flowed for whatever reason. But he needs to play. He will play. He's a great young man, but he's a good football player. He needs to play for us.
We didn't get a chance to talk to Dave after the game. Did you get a reason from him why Delton didn't play?
Basically because he wanted to keep Langford in the game based on how things were rolling there. And, and then a little bit of just, everybody looks back, I think, after a football game and says, what can I do better? And that's one of the things, because I asked the same question you just asked as we go through personnel. But it's hard. It's hard to roll three tailbacks. We had that problem before with when Larry Caper was here, and Larry's a very good player, but it was very difficult to get 3 in there, especially when you're trying to get the touches for Langford in the football game because he could possibly break one. But that's something that we got to acknowledge and we got to be better at.
Mark, at the beginning of the year, Purdue looked absolutely abysmal against Central Michigan and then was competitive against Notre Dame and looked better. What have they done besides the quarterback change when you look at them over time that's made them a little more competitive?
I think they're staying the course and trying to be more consistent. Akeem Hunt, number 1 for them, the tailback. I mean, you think about it, Leroy Keys, pretty good player. John Standiford, I think he had 21 catches in 1999 against us, I think. Taylor Stubblefield, he's number 4. Akeem is number 4 in all-purpose yardage in the history of Purdue football. They're more productive on offense when you look at their numbers now compared to their numbers last year. They're trying to find their way in the quarterback position. He did a nice job last week. They've got some guys hurt a little bit in and out, but I think they're staying the course a little bit. And usually when you stay the course and you allow yourself, or people allow you to critique what you're doing, you can get better. I think that's what they're doing. They've seemed to play up to their competition. And maybe when they're favored, they play down a little bit, I don't know. But they seem to play up to their competition, and you watch the Notre Dame game, you watch the Iowa game, you watch this past game, you know, you're impressed by what they've done. You look at last year's game, what they were able to accomplish, and it was a close football game.
Mark, the old school's coming out of me. Back in the day, winning the Big Ten was everything. I'm going back to this playoff format thing. There's almost a climate around here, the way that game unfolded, almost like you lost because you lost the lead. I'm going back to the playoff system. Is that the danger in all this? Like, if you don't win games with style points, something's wrong with you?
Well, I think you can look around the country right now and ask about four or five other teams how they feel this week. So it's all about winning football games, because this gets forgotten in the big picture thing. If you win, you're going to advance. If you lose by a couple, chances are you don't. You know, somebody reminded me, hey, we have won 19 out of the last 21 games here. We're 19-2. So we just keep marching on. We'll be fine. And hey, the game, I don't want to say got away from us because we won the football game, but things happen in football games. Crazy things happen. I was at the Purdue game in 1997. We were up by 11 kicking a field goal with 2 minutes to go, and we lost. So things happen. You have to be prepared, and you know, as a coach and as a staff, we have things we can coach on now, because like I said, you know, we pick off that pass, everything's rosy, and we're sitting here, you know, maybe winning 34-9 or whatever the case, but that's not the case. And credit Nebraska, they kept playing. They kept playing up front. They didn't make it easy for us to run against them. They got off the field. They forced a punt. You know, they drove down the field. They hit a big play somehow, some way, and they got back in the game. So that's a credit to them too.
Mark, over here, as a follow-up to Fred's question there, with the upheaval that we saw in the rankings over the weekend, does this strengthen your argument that MSU has a pretty good chance, despite the lack of quality competition, really, in the rest of your schedule?
Well, you know, it's very competitive. I can tell you this, when I'm sitting over there, it's very competitive in terms of every week that we play. And I know how everybody else may look at things because they look at the big picture of things, but I think that if you just continue to win, good things will happen. And I can just look back at last year, and there's a great indication in terms of what went on, because last year at this time, I think we had the same record, but we weren't even in the top 25. So we somehow advanced by winning games. Other people are going to advance too. There's enough football teams in this conference that are winning games that they're going to advance as well. So if we do what we're supposed to do, or what we're attempting to do, and get in the playoff game, our playoff game, the Big Ten Conference's playoff game, and win that game, then I think good things are possible. I think we turn on a lot of TV sets, and let's not be naive. It's about who's watching the game too.
Yeah, but isn't this
And
what...
so you've got a quarter of the country watching a football game. They want to see a football team from this part of the country in that game.
So you think that there is a regional sense here that people nationally want to see a Midwest-based team?
I think everybody wants to see a football team that has success. So if you have great success, you've got a chance to get in there. I also think that, it's just my opinion, so you know, don't,
Right.
it's just, you guys are asking the question, but, so I'm just a fan right now. Just want you to know I'm just a fan, okay? But it's my opinion that as a fan, as a football fan, that if you win and you have one loss because of what you did the year before, the chances of you getting in the game are pretty good. Because what happened last year has something to do with it. What happens in your conference has something to do with it. You know, your ranking obviously has a big part to do with it. But I remember last year, you know, a lot of teams lose 2 games. A lot of teams. So it's tough to be a one-loss team, and a one-loss team is going to get at least a second look. They're going to at least get a look. Now, who that one-loss team is, that could be a variety of people in this conference, because right now there's quite a few of us that have one loss. So I think as long as people keep winning, you know, good things usually happen. But again, that's just me as a fan.
Coach, last year's game against Purdue, as well as your team played the second half of last season, the Purdue game was kind of the egg that your team laid in that stretch. How much of that was you versus how much of it was them versus just maybe Hazel? He's got a pretty good background with Coach Bowman at Ohio State, maybe just understanding your offensive philosophy.
I think that they played well. They came and played extremely hard. It was a physical football game, really from the get-go. And there were some things that maybe we could have done better, I'm sure. But at the same time, you credit Purdue and what they came and brought to the table. And again, I think they played up when they came here. I expect a very competitive game over there. It's tough to play away. It's tough to play at Purdue. We've been there before. We've always had great games with them. I think there's sort of a history. There's a little bit of tradition there that we've always played close games. I could even think back to when I was here before. Close games.
Going back to the fans for a little bit, has it surprised you at all just how big of a story that empty student section has become? And do you think it's an issue that should be at the forefront right now?
That's why you bring notes to the conference. I felt like I might be asked that question. Okay, first of all, I support what Mark Hollis said. Mark Hollis' job here is about how can he make Mark Dantonio's job better, how can he make football better. Okay, we're trying to develop a culture here. I may have to look at my notes, but I think. Trying to develop a culture here. Okay, so when you don't get what you want at the end of the game, you have to at least let people know that that's not what you want. You have to at least let people know. So great environment at the beginning of the game, really throughout. In the fourth quarter, it was a long football game. The game wasn't over, I think, until 12:15. So, there's a lot of things to do out there after 11 o'clock, I guess. But, we didn't have them there at the end of the game. And, at the end of the game, we needed them there. So I don't think there's anything wrong with asking why. Again, we're 19-2. We all want a championship. We feed off our fans. Our players feed off our fans. They just do. And I think the fans probably feed off of what's going on the field. They just do. So when you look at that, aspect of it, if you want to change something, you've got to get involved. And so that's just been the history of everything we do. If you want to change something, you got to get involved. And so to get involved, you at least have to ask. You have to ask, and you have to say that you're disappointed in it. But I've always taken the response here that I'm very appreciative of the people who were there, and appreciative of the people who stayed. And that's sort of the way I feel now. And could we have closed it out and nothing would have been said? Yeah, maybe, but as the game went, as it came down the stretch, there was a big red roar a couple of times. Okay, there were still a lot of people there, but the student section got a little sparse, which it does a lot of places. And it was very late. I left the stadium, I think, at 1:30. So it was a late game. But you want a night game, you want a primetime game. Everybody wants that. There's a price to pay and a sacrifice for those two. But, when you look at at Mark Hollis and what he asked for, and he's got to make tough decisions sometimes, and I think that we all look at that. Sometimes, how do you change a culture? Sometimes you have to change a culture internally. Sometimes you have to look out externally. It's part of game management, I think.
You and Coach Bowman are the two guys on the staff with the rings, the national championship rings that you can show players. I don't think it was character or anything like that, but after the Oregon game, your guys admitted they probably relaxed a little bit when they had Oregon down. After the game, some of the guys talked about getting comfortable against Nebraska. Does that concern you because you've been to a national championship, how little margin of error there is, and how do you coach that up so it doesn't happen again?
I think you coach for the next play, first of all, and we tried to do that in the game on Saturday. Did we coach correctly? No. Did we play correctly? No. Because there were things that we need to do better on both ends. So we're all in it together. And I got asked the question by Mike on after the game. The Oregon game was still in question. We had scored to go up by 9. They came right back and cut it to 7. Cut it to 2. The next series. So that game, to me, I don't know what our players are talking about there because that game was never over. So maybe I'm to blame there because they're misguided in that one, okay? And I'll take the responsibility there. This one, we had a comfortable lead, but Nebraska's a good football team. All you have to do is turn on the film and watch them play against us. They're a good football team. They've got players, they can make plays, they can change the game very quickly, as they did. And that's the product of having a good football team. I don't really know why it happens. You know, sometimes things just happen. But momentum swung, and especially after the punt return, momentum swung, and we started to hang on a little bit. Great job by Curtis Drummond getting the onside kick. I thought we kind of closed it out, but then, you know, we ran out of bounds. So, you know, I think we could have called a different play, but at the same time, he had 35 yards to get down. So that's a bad decision by the player as well. Okay, so, no, I don't think our players, we've never coached like that here. We've always really tried to finish games and really tried to strive to be the very best. If we are, then that needs to be addressed, and I'll address that today at 2:30, I'll tell them. But there's no easy games out there. I just know how we coach. Very difficult to win. Now, on paper, a 17-point win or a 10-point win might seem like a lot, but 10-point win is nothing. That's one play.
Mark, when you guys go on the road, how much different happens for you as a team than in your home games, in pregame prep and things like that? How much do you have to consciously get guys into a rhythm?
We change things up when we go on the road because we want to keep things fresh, want to make it different. And want them to have some of the same dynamics they have at home, but at the same time it's different. So you got to approach it differently. So we do some different things that we don't do at home. I think that's a good thing for us. We've won away from home. We have a pretty good record right now away from home as well. And I guess we've lost 2 games. Those 2 games that we lost are away from home. Not to throw the fans in there.
I was just going there, it seems like a month since you've been on the road. I guess it has been a month since you've been on the road. I mean, there's value in road games. Are you ready and anxious to get away from it?
Yeah, I think our football team is ready to go play on the road. I think it'll be a change for us, keeps us fresh, like I said, and it's another challenge. It's more challenging when you go on the road, and I think you have to rise up to those challenges.
Try to sneak in 2 personnel items, Mark. First of all, where are you on Nicholson and Williamson, that competition? Also, have you had 2 ends like Calhoun and Rush playing at that level, that many snaps before? It just seems like they played so much football. Is that a concern in terms of, you know, giving them more of a blow?
Answer the first question, it'll be either or on Nicholson or R.J. Williamson. It'll depend on how they practice this week, and I'd say right now, Monte played well enough to be the guy that starts in practice here, but that could change very, very quickly. RJ's still a very good football player, and I thought Monte took a big step forward as a true freshman playing in that environment, and that'll only benefit him. And then as far as our defensive ends, those guys are the guys doing the job. They had great games and playing at a very, very high level. But I think, you know, you're correct in saying that, we got to continue to try and work other guys in there. And, Demetrius Cooper has to play better. He's got to firm up. He's got to know what to do. But he's extremely talented. He's very, very capable. So we just continue to have to, he's a redshirt freshman. We have to continue to bring him along because he'll be a very good player for us. But there's a lot of consequences out there that are riding in terms of how a guy plays the quarterback when he's riding Amir Abdullah and Tommy Armstrong has the ball. So you better be right. And that was a big part of our success, how those 2 guys played.
Coach, I know you're not much for individual awards, but Tony Lippett's a guy that you've celebrated really since last season when you had your talk with him. He gets added to the Biletnikoff Award watch list, I guess, finally, going into week 6. Can you talk about Tony finally getting some national recognition, and then also the need to continue to develop the passing game to the other receivers? We saw Burbridge and Kings make some pretty sensational catches.
Yeah, Tony's an outstanding player, leader. He's been a big play guy for us. I really think the last year as well. He's really even more on the scene this year. Seems to be a guy that we go to. But you know, we really have had different guys. We really, as I've said, we're deep in our wide receiver group. So if you, depending on which game you look at, you'll say, well, who's number 85? He's making some great catches. Or you'll say, well, number 12 against Oregon, against maybe it was Wyoming, made some big catches. And then you've got Burbage now breaking out this past week. Keith Mumphrey had a big game the week before. So all of those guys, all 5 of those guys, I think have caught the ball very well and have had big plays. And you're trying to really figure out, okay, how do we get them the ball? As a head coach, I'm sitting there saying, okay, how are we getting this guy the ball? How are we getting that guy the ball? So we have playmakers, and that's a very good thing right now. And then you add Lippett into that aspect, and Langford. Nick Hill's been solid as well, and got a couple tight ends that can make plays as well.
Just follow up on Connor Cook, and I know you don't evaluate till the end of the year, not to anoint him too soon or anything, but some of the throws that he's making, is there even a wow factor for you when you watch the film and see the windows Connor's thrown into?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's some 50-50 catches that are on the money. They're well defended balls, and you know he's put him right to that one. He's put him at the right place. I thought the throw to Lippett, great throw down the sideline. The throw to Kings, great throw. The throws to Burbage. But you know, there's always can be growth, and I think you got to grow in other areas too. So we can't have penalties where 2 people are in motion because we don't set the guy, allow him to set. So there's always growth occurring. I think for every one of us, for the head football coach, for the coordinators, for our players, for our seniors, there's always growth that takes place. And I think we got to look for that growth and try and correct that as we go. But he's got all the ability. He's confident. He's got great skills. Great skills.
Anything else for Coach?
Hey, Mark, with the linebackers, can you describe sort of how you view their different roles, especially it seems like Riley Bull and Ed Davis both did a lot for you the other night in sort of different situations.
Yeah, you know, we really have, because we play so many no-huddle teams, you know, Nebraska ran 90-plus plays on Saturday night. So, you know, you're rolling people in there in nickel situations sometimes as opposed to regular defense situations. So one guy may be a better pass cover guy. You know, we put 3 linebackers in with a 5th defensive back in our nickel situations. They're a different set of linebackers. So some of that just goes with that. You know, we want this guy to get experience, or this guy does this better. Riley is a guy that I think is getting better and better. He's a young player. Thought Ed Davis had a great game. Played championship football. I thought Tawan Jones played as well as he's played as well. And you know, you want a thumper at Mike, and when you watch that game, Tawan was a thumper. I mean, he got off blocks, straight up, and made hits. And we need to continue having him doing that. Darian Harris was in and out of the box, you know, playing a lot of outside the box plays, you know, because of the nature of their formations. And then he slipped inside a little bit in nickel situations. So those guys are doing a lot of things, and you know, they all had great games, I think, on Saturday night.